the record button, just so that everything's safe for the attendees that can't make it. But yeah.
Can everyone smile so I can post it on LinkedIn and talk about how applications are Friday?
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I guess we're waiting for a few more attendees to pop in, and then okay, alrighty. How about we wait around 3 more minutes and then we'll get started with our panel. I'm actually really excited because I know that, trying to find your success and trying to be like a good leader is something that's very crucial to, how do I say, to kind of find find yourself and your own success. But in reality, it's not taught in school. And also wondering why in high school they don't teach like the types of skills that we need to thrive in society, but instead other things that may not be so applicable. So I'm kind of wondering like what exactly is the purpose of education. So I was like thinking about that as I was creating the questions.
Vivian's got some late night alone in her bedroom trying to fall asleep leadership questions for us.
Yeah, some deep thoughts.
Oh my gosh, deep thoughts. Have you ever had like the deep thoughts that, suddenly come up when you're doing something normal and then you suddenly think about something and then you're actually thinking about it?
Definitely. Distraction thoughts. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, for sure. I would say like one distraction thought that I had once is when a friend asked me something. It was for science. The teacher put this out as a question. So he asked, oh my gosh, enlightenment moments. So he's dropped like a soap bar on the floor and he asked, is the soap bar dirty or is the floor clean? I'm not sure what, like honestly, sometimes we don't know the answer to some things and that's okay. But yeah, I guess we could get started. Like it's almost 5:05. So hello everyone. Oh my gosh, is water dry or wet? That's a good question. I actually don't know. But I guess if anything's surrounded by water, it's wet, but I don't know. But I guess we could maybe save that for like the last question, because I know that after like the guide discussion, we'll always like leave the questions towards the audience. So the Q&A box is always open. So make sure to like answer the questions. Oh yeah, made you think. Yeah, you made me think. Alrighty. So, oh my gosh, I just can't believe it's the last week of the program. But yes, this is week 8. Kind of the panel outline. We have some lovely panelists here. And kind of our topic is like being a good leader and finding like your success in life, like even after high school, which is essentially very important. To kind of discover ourselves and what will really make us happy and fulfilled, because we don't want to live without any regrets, I would say. So yeah, I'll take it away to start off. Who should I start off with? So I'll do a popcorn. You could always pass it on to random panelists. So I'll first pass it on to who's beside me in the Zoom panel. So it's Natalie.
Hi. Should I just introduce myself, I guess?
For sure.
Yeah, so my name is Natalie Hahn. I'm a senior aerospace engineering student out of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm really excited to be leading and joining these other fantastic women here for the panel. I actually lead the Society of Women Engineers Leadership Development Program for collegiate students at a society level. So I have 29 young, bright, inspiring collegiates underneath me who I help develop their leadership potential all year, as well as helping out with the advanced track, which is another 21 participants. So, tons of leadership experience. And I think that this is a topic that you're kind of expected to just know for some reason. People just always assume that you should know what it means to be a leader right out of the gate. And I think it's important to have panels like this. So I'm really excited to be here and help out some people.
Alrighty, let's pass it on to Julianna.
Hi, so my name is Julianna. I live in Beaumont, Alberta, Canada. So actually just really close to Edmonton, Alberta. I just graduated from a Bachelor of Science, majoring in biology from Campus Saint-Jean, which is the Francophone campus of the University of Alberta. While I was there, I also did a certificate in interdisciplinary leadership studies. So I do have a little bit of formal leadership education under my belt. And I had some other leadership opportunities while I was in university just to kind of get some, I guess, practical experience in that area. And I'm returning to the University of Alberta in the fall to start a program in public health, and that's a master's in public health. So super excited for that, and I'm excited to be here. I really hope to maybe give some insight into what some, I guess, formal leadership training would look like and what the benefits are of that, and whether you should seek like a program in university as opposed to practical experience and things like that. So yeah, super happy to be here. And do I get to pass it to someone else, or do you want to pick on someone, Vivian?
You can pass on to someone else for sure.
We'll go ahead, Parmeet. I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Juliana. So I'm Parmeet. I just finished my undergraduate in nursing, and I will be starting my first year of medical school at McMaster University on Monday, actually, which is terrifying. During my time at Ryerson University for nursing, I was a member of several different organizations playing a leadership role. For the Canadian Nursing Students Association chapter at Ryerson, I was the associate director. Essentially, this is a group of student leaders who are there to empower our students, advocate for the students, and just create a really meaningful experience for them while they complete their nursing education. I also founded and served as the president for the Multi-Organ Transplant Insight Outreach and Networking Society, which is essentially an organ advocacy group that was inspired by one of my best friends who received a heart transplant, and we worked together to really create that group and just share knowledge about how important it is to donate. So everyone, please sign up if you haven't already, if you're willing to. And I'm just so excited to be here to learn from all of you about what you think leadership is and just to share my own little thoughts about it. So yeah, and then I guess I'll pass it on to Lyann. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
No, you said it right, which is awesome. I know it's spelled a little bit differently. So my name's Lyann. I am 23. I am an incoming second-year law student at the University of Windsor. I did my undergrad at U of C. I studied law and society, so that was a really nice setup to go to law school after. Just say a little bit about myself. I'm a strong advocate of social justice. Wherever I go, really. Back in Calgary, I worked for Calgary Legal Guidance for 3 years. Served on the leadership team for the recently launched Calgary Indigenous Court, and that really lent itself to the different RA roles that I've done at the University of Windsor. So I've worked for the National Self-Represented Litigants Project, and I'm still doing that. I recently just published a blog on evictions, which really lends itself to the volunteer work I'm doing right now with the Law Students Legal Advice Program, because I have a hearing tomorrow, which is related to an eviction. So yeah, it's a little bit about myself. Just recently moved to Vancouver back in March, so started lockdown in Vancouver, but I'm able to get outside now, which is really nice. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let me just dive right into the questions, and then we have a long list here. So I'll start off with kind of a simple question. though I would say it, even though it looks simple, it actually can be harder than it sounds. So what exactly is leadership, and kind of what does it mean to be a good leader? Oh, I asked like a really trick question at the start.
I'll go, because this is always an interview question for Society of Women Engineers at a society level. You know, what does leadership mean to you? You know, over the years, I think my answer has changed. When I was really young, the answer was anytime you got to, you know, be in charge of a group of students, which was a very naive definition of leadership at the time. And I think now, you know, being older and holding more leadership roles, my definition of leadership is anytime I, as a person, get to use a position I'm in to help other people grow. Whether that is growing their emotional intelligence, or it's helping them gain a new technical skill, or it's even doing something like reviewing their resume and going, hey, you know, you have these amazing skills. Let's talk about how to actually talk about yourself. Anytime I can help somebody become a better version of who they are is when I know I'm doing my job as a leader, and when that like true definition of leadership comes into play for me.
Awesome. I really love that answer. Who does anyone else want to add on?
I just wanted to say that like amazing answer. It just reminds me of this notion of like servant leadership almost that I was introduced to during like a research training program. Over there, it was just viewed as more of like a rigorous, like do as much as you can, show that you're a leader in that sense. But I think servant leadership can truly be defined as helping others grow, like you said, and being there for others instead of like being more like of like a dictator style. It's really just to help guide and help to promote others and see how they can increase their strengths essentially.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Alrighty, moving on to the next question. I would say, like, do you think that their leaders are born with the ability to lead, or do you think that they develop their leadership skills?
If I can answer this question, I would say that there are certain qualities in someone that are more innate that can, you know, you're more predisposed to being a leader. You know, I think back to, you know, school projects with the person who would pipe up and would organize everyone else. But I think that what truly makes a good leader is also, again, I really like that term servant leadership, is being able to not only serve others, but also empathize and understand them. I feel like it's really good when you anticipate other people's needs, if you really are in a leadership role. Something that I really took away from the book Creativity Inc., which is written by Ed Catmull. He's the president of Pixar, Disney Animation. He said that, you know, even as the president of Pixar, he would go to people's offices rather than expect people to come with them, rather to come to him with their problems. He was, you know, he anticipated their needs. He would go check in with people. And so I really took that away when I was serving as the co-president of the Pre-Law Society. I would not only have like big team meetings, but I'd also have check-ins, just sort of like a one-on-one basis or by portfolio. I think that's a really good way of, you know, eliciting any sort of like struggles that people are going through, and understanding that everyone's busy and we all have our own lives going on. But you know, giving them the tools for success by understanding what they're going through.
Yeah, for sure.
I think something important to me about that question, and I love your response, and I've never heard of that book, but that immediately makes me want to read it. I think what's important is not whether you're born with it, but if it's nurtured. You know, you only learn things like not expecting people to come to your office, but going to them if you have that example in your life and somebody kind of sets it in stone for you. So I think regardless of if you're, you know, predisposed to these qualities, which people definitely are, 100%, you see that all the time. I think it's more important to have things like a mentorship program, or to really have somebody to help instill and nurture your own leadership abilities and teach you, you know, I used to be a really, really big introvert. I wouldn't talk to people. I hated talking to people, sit in the back of the classroom, and you would never know it now because somebody was there to kind of help, you know, edge me along.
I definitely have to agree that a lot of times basically progress and improving is very important when being a leader, because we're always learning as leaders and we're always improving as well. Like I remember a couple of years ago, like I was actually completely different from me right now. Like I wouldn't even have courage to be here. I couldn't even make a phone call. Like it's very strange. I just don't like socializing a lot with other people. But then I would say that by constantly improving upon yourself and constantly trying to find yourself and improve like your leadership skills, like learning a little bit more about what leadership exactly is, like how to work with people, it kind of eventually will kind of, when you work with people, you kind of can push yourself a little bit out of the comfort zone, like a little bit at a time. And eventually that will build upon itself. And yeah, let's see. It's definitely like a really big journey for sure. All right. So I also want to ask kind of like what is kind of like 1 to 2 qualities that would make like a good leader? I know there's a ton, but specifically to you, because I know that every single leader is definitely for sure different. But kind of like 1 or 2, oh, okay, I just saw Miko's comment, but kind of 1 to 2 qualities that you think a great leader should have.
I would say the skill of active listening is very, very important. Not in just leaders, but in anyone, just to be able to really sit down and listen to someone, listen to what they're saying, and understand their experience of it, not to embody someone's experience, but to understand where they're coming from and what factors are at play. And I think that links directly into, like Lyann said, like to be empathetic, to be understanding of someone's experience, and to essentially feel with them without overtaking their experience or their emotions in that case. And this is coming from like a purely healthcare provider perspective, because this is what we do with patients. And I think healthcare leaders are really those that are able to sit down with their patients and listen to their problems and identify solutions to what they're facing that are not only holistic, but also very much tailored to what the patient needs to really help them out of that issue.
I think self-awareness is another really good one. I think that it's important as a leader to be aware of your strengths, to be aware of your weaknesses, and to be working on your weaknesses to help you become a better leader. And also on the topic of self-awareness, I think it's important to recognize your biases, kind of how your experiences influence how you're leading today, and ways that might actually be harmful towards the people that you're working with. And as well as an awareness of your privilege. So again, your background, where you're coming from, is this the same as what other people might be experiencing in their lives? Could they be experiencing things differently than you are? And that takes a little bit of time and self-reflection to kind of see how other people might be perceiving what's going on. So self-awareness for sure.
I think a big one that's maybe not as, thought of, at least in my field. So being, an engineer, people don't necessarily want to talk to each other. And I think a really big thing over the year that I've learned is knowing how to communicate, and not just like, how to talk to other people, but do you send an email versus a phone call? Do you text somebody versus DM in the group chat? Knowing how to communicate is so important, because as a leader, being able to leverage your tone and your connotations behind your words when you're doing that. An email, it has a much more formal sense than calling somebody up and being like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this. So I think, knowing how to communicate is more than just knowing how to communicate.
I would say for me, one of the best things is definitely it's either like empathy or either listening. Like I feel like a lot of times we know that other people do have like really great ideas, and other people like may have their struggles too. And I feel that as a leader, it's like it's kind of our responsibility to make sure that our teammates are okay, and to check in with them, and also listen to their ideas, because they may see things in a different perspective that may be a better decision to make instead of the ones that we have. And by collaborating with ideas, like we can ultimately help each other towards our own success, I would say. And now I would say moving on to the next question. I know that it can be pretty hard to distinguish what exactly is a leader and what exactly is like a manager or like a boss. So I kind of really want to distinguish those two because they tend to be kind of used interchangeably. So that leads to my next question. What's the difference between a leader and a manager or a boss?
I feel like this is one we're all going to have things to say on, so I'm interested to see what everybody else says.
Just to like be very basic about it, I think a manager is someone that tells you what to do, how to do it, or just reminds you of your responsibilities. It's more of like a direction role where they're telling you what to do instead of being a leader where you're essentially kind of empowering others to do their best, or you're supporting them to do their best. And managers can be great, like they can support you as well. But I think a leader is really someone that you look up to, or someone that helps you in your growth, and is very much so personally invested in making sure that you are achieving what you want to. Just like a very basic.
Just adding on to what Parmeet said, I really agree with that. And I think just to add on, you don't have to be a manager or the boss in order to be a leader. Like I feel like in any sort of capacity, the way that you carry yourself, that you do your work, and that you respect your coworkers and help them along the way is what makes you a good leader. You don't necessarily have to be calling the shots at the end of the day.
Just to kind of add on to what Lyann was saying just there, just to kind of maybe introduce some terminology that you might not have heard before. A topic that really stuck with me from my leadership studies in undergrad was the notion of formal versus informal leadership. So your boss at work, that would be a formal leader. It's very clear, they're in charge. An informal leader is somebody who maybe takes initiative. Nobody necessarily gave them a place to be a leader. They just kind of stepped into that role naturally, or they saw something that needed to be done and they went and did it. So I agree that managers and bosses, they can be great. They can be leaders. For sure, they are formal leaders, but there are also many opportunities to become an informal leader in many circumstances to create change there.
I think something that's important, at least for me, when distinguishing between the two, and Julianna, you took the words right out of my mouth, right? A manager and a boss can be a leader. There's different types of leaders. What's important to recognize is there's different levels of leadership, both informal leaders and formal leaders. Lyann brought up a really good point of just showing up and being respectful and listening to your peers is one level of leadership that a lot of people cast aside. They don't really think of. They always think of the person that's taking charge and leading and barging in. So there's different levels of leadership in each, being an informal leader and a formal leader, which I think adds a new dynamic, because a lot of people want to think that there's only one type of leadership and a leader has to have A, B, C all the way through Z qualities, and if you don't have all of them, you're not a leader, which is completely inaccurate. Which I think is why a lot of people want to go, oh, a manager can't be a leader. No, they definitely can. I've had some phenomenal managers in my life that have helped me grow and move me into roles that I never would have had otherwise. So I think it's important to remember the levels of leadership.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have to agree. Okay, awesome. By the way, I love all our answers so far. Just gonna move on to the next question. They're kind of, I would say, being a leader, if we want to start working on our leadership skills and start improving to be a leader, what are some of the first steps that we can take? Because I know that the idea of being a leader can be really daunting.
Feedback. Always 100% ask for feedback. You do not know your areas for growth and improvement until you ask. One of the standout leaders in an organization I was in high school was the girl that always, at the end of every month, went to our advisor and said, what can I do to improve? Julianna earlier mentioned, being self-aware. If you don't have self-awareness, you either are going to be a stagnant leader or you're not going to be the leader you think you are. So always asking for feedback and going, what can I improve on? What am I doing well? And what do you think? Do a SWOT analysis. Ask somebody to help you do a SWOT analysis of yourself. There you go. Use that project snapshot skill. do a SWOT analysis of yourself.
Oh yeah, I definitely have to love to do the SWOT analysis. So kind of just to give a little brief on what the SWOT analysis is. It stands for like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So kind of the first two are definitely like internally to yourself. So what are you good at? And also like what are you want to improve? And then kind of the last two are like opportunities and threats. They're kind of somewhat external, like kind of a little bit out of control. But it's really great to be aware of them, so we could kind of like steer our way through and adjust. And also opportunities, like what's really great out there. For example, opportunities. It's definitely a lot of free courses to take into mind while doing leadership. I know that the League of Innovators kind of has a free Innovators Academy if you want to start your own initiative, as well as to kind of improve yourself. And then there's also threats. So kind of what really can hinder your way to finding your success and being like a really great leader. I'll say, we could name an external one. It could be, for example, like if you're in a team project and maybe like uncooperative teammates, which I know usually in team projects that sometimes happens, which is like really sucks, but it is something that we could look at and then we could try to mitigate it, I would say.
I would also want to add, with SWOT analysis, they can definitely still be internal. When I do it, because I do a SWOT analysis yearly for my leadership review, and sorry about the Air Force tanker airplane going by. Opportunities can definitely still be internal. Like an opportunity I have is learning 5 new members every single month. A threat, can be the fact that, you maybe stumble over your words too much or you don't listen as well. So, the SWOT analysis can definitely stay internal. Ella, I saw your question where you kind of were, asking what not to say when asking for feedback. My big thing when asking for feedback is never being negative about myself. And that kind of goes into understanding how to take feedback and how to evaluate it as constructive feedback. I think when we are unnecessarily harsh about ourselves, or somebody gives us feedback and you immediately go, oh, that means I'm not a great leader, a lot of times you can put yourself in a mentality where you set yourself back as a leader because you're already negatively thinking about yourself. So then you automatically assume everybody else is negatively thinking about you that way. So just, asking for feedback and
Oh, I think there's a technical difficulty. No. Okay. How about we can circle back once Natalie gets her connection back, but at the moment we can move on to the next question. So kind of, I would say, when you make a mistake, and whenever like there's like a mistake, or whenever you have like you get rejections or any adversities that may come along your way, because as a leader you always receive like these huge obstacles in their way, but what are some ways that like we can kind of mitigate them or to kind of cope with them so we could kind of overcome them?
I can answer this question if I could. I feel something that has really influenced me in how I take rejection and how I move on from it is keeping in mind that growth is not linear. And it's so common that we compare ourselves like to our friends or our other classmates. And it's really important to, realize that, life in itself is a journey, and that you're always going to have a goal in your mindset. You're always going to be just trying to reach for it. You're never going to be 100% satisfied with where you are. So in order to, be more at peace with yourself and be kind to yourself, it's important to keep in mind that growth is not linear and that you will see some downturns. But honestly, it sounds very cliche, but I find it to be very true that when one door closes, another one opens. a good example was at Calgary Legal Guidance. I wanted that job more than anything, and it took me, I was rejected at first, and I had to wait an entire summer until they called me back up again, and they had created their own position for me, essentially. But it was because they said that I had handled the rejection like with humility. So it's important to be humble, to see that there is something to grow from. And that's another great example of how important it is to ask for feedback. It's really crucial in order to learn from your mistakes, and to keep an open mind, because you will find something that's more worth your time or is meant to be, because it's important to not force anything either, especially in your career. It's important to find a good fit.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I also definitely have to say that a lot of times whenever we make mistakes, it's definitely okay to make them. Like I remember that if we tend to put ourselves down after making a mistake, we tend to doubt ourselves as, with our leadership skills and being like a leader. So yeah, at the moment, Natalie's trying to come back. For some reason, it kicked her out and it won't let her rejoin. Okay. But yeah, definitely, hopefully she'll rejoin. Okay. Moving on to the next question. I would say, how does self-confidence help you lead others? Because I know that being confident in yourself and believing yourself is kind of a crucial part of being a leader. But how important is it if we want to enhance like our leadership path in being a leader?
I think, if it's okay for me to answer this one, I think self-confidence really plays a role in reassuring others almost, or having them believe in you. Like, if you believe in yourself that you can achieve a certain goal that you set out for your team, along with your team. Self-confidence, I think, also extends to having confidence in the people around you. Um, if you have that confidence in yourself and that confidence in your team, I think it really inspires others and motivates them as well, where they see someone who believes in being able to achieve whatever you've set out to do, and they are then pushed to do it as well. They feel that they can do it as well, in a way.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer. I was just going to add on as well. I think, at least in my experience in leadership, I've dealt with like some criticism, people who disagree with what I've done or the decisions that I've made. So I think self-confidence can help a lot with helping you tolerate that kind of criticism. It just, having self-confidence means that you know that what you're doing, you know that you're doing a good job, like even though you might make mistakes here and there, you know that things are going okay, and the tiniest little criticism isn't going to knock you down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Other than that, I'll definitely move on to the next question. I'll be switching over a little bit more to what success is. I would say kind of the first thing would be like what comes to mind when you hear the word success. Because I know that success is very vague, and like there's a lot of different ways that we can interpret it. So I just want to kind of hear like how exactly do you define success?
My answer to this question, the first thing that comes to mind is conviction and delayed gratification. It's something that I've learned in, most recently in my journey. Nothing comes easily if it's really worth it in the end. So I think that we live in a society and in a time of instant gratification, where you get what you want right away. And in real life, and for the goals that really matter, it takes a lot of hard work, and you're not going to see the fruits of your labor right away. You're going to have to put your head down, put in the work, and eventually it will pay off. So to be able to find that discipline and to find, the motivation to keep moving forward, I think is really crucial for me in order to find your own success.
I definitely have to agree with that for sure. I just want to say, like, I think success, especially in today's society, we view it as like perhaps something monetary or some sort of like tangible thing or a position in a company or whatever that we've achieved. Whereas I think my perception of success, although it was that initially, I think at every stage of your career, you're always striving to reach a certain point. Even with your education, you're just waiting to get into this program or this position, research position, whatever. But I think it's really evolved to being more so personal satisfaction, I would say, and just like well-being, like overall well-being, physically, mentally. I think it's important to find your own definition of success, but for me, it's just being at a place in life where I'm satisfied with all of the work that I've done. I'm satisfied being where in the place that I am, and I find myself being mentally healthy, physically healthy, hopefully, even though quarantine has ruined that, and just being very, very content in a sense, I would say.
Okay, awesome. So, okay, alrighty. I would say this kind of is definitely up to subjection. And I would say that a lot of times people refer to success kind of like an endpoint or kind of like a journey. So kind of would you think like finding your own success is kind of like a supposed endpoint, like a goal that you need to have, or is it like kind of like a journey that you need to undergo through?
I think personally, I've always perceived success to be more of an accomplishment, so more of like a goal. Like I've gotten this position, I've gotten into the program that I wanted to get into, et cetera, et cetera. But I think you can find a lot of success in the journey as well. I think in the process of pursuing this goal, pursuing this position, university program, whatever, I think that you can learn a lot about yourself. I think you can develop a lot of soft skills. I traveled to Honduras in 2015 with a group of teenagers from my community, and I really kind of took on an informal leadership role in that. And I spent a lot of time fundraising. I think it was Vivian earlier who said that even picking up the phone and talking to someone was really intimidating at first. Being able to learn how to communicate with people, being able to pick up the phone and talk to someone without being afraid to do it, being able to organize things, organize my own efforts, communicate with people. All of that, I think, were really small wins along the way that even though I guess the trip itself was the accomplishment that we would call the success, I'd say that I found a lot of success along the way as well, just through personal development.
Natalie is back on, but she'll be rejoining soon. I'm just gonna wait a little tad bit before she rejoins.
Hi.
Hi.
It kicked me out. It literally like booted me from the meeting and the whole thing. So I don't know if like my Zoom crashed on my computer or what happened, but I'm back.
Alrighty, awesome. Okay, so we're just going a tad bit more into success after like kind of being leadership. So I would say the next question, it's kind of like what is like your formula? It's kind of like a recipe for success. Because not everyone has one, but it's definitely great to always like listen to others, and then after that we could take our own suggestions and kind of create like our own formula, kind of recipe for success.
I think Project Snapshot is a perfect example. Looking towards those that have been in the position that you were in back in their day, right? I think mentorship is really crucial to finding success and learning a bit more about a field that you might have some sort of reservations toward. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't take away insights from lawyers and law students that I talked to when I was still considering whether I wanted to go through the process. So I'd say my major takeaway is looking for mentorship, being keen enough to put yourself out there, and also being an active listener and taking away from that.
A big one for me is goal setting down to the day. So I do strategic planning a lot. So I have a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. And then for my 1 year, I break it down into, like the first half of the year, then the second half of the year. Then I break down the first half of the year into months, and then I go down into weeks. So I'm a really, really big, fan of doing that and really hammering down, okay, I want to get here. I want to be this sort of leader. I want to have this success. Well, how do I do it? For example, one of the things I'm doing now is I'm planning to run for collegiate director of the entire Society of Women Engineers, which is like 30,000 people underneath me. So I have, goals set in place, and I have a method of how to get there. And, being a type A personality, I need that high level of detail to hold myself accountable and make sure I get there.
I would say having a very large and diverse transferable skill set is very important to success. Having a lot of experiences doing extracurriculars in a sense in different areas that you normally wouldn't be in. For instance, I'm more of a medical healthcare person, but I love the idea of Project Snapshot and being able to learn from people in different fields, because I think that all of these factors really come together and help you to find success in new ventures.
Awesome. I would say one way definitely that will help us kind of visualize how you would look like if you were successful. For me, it's definitely someone who started their own business. It's kind of a dream, what dreams do you want to have? And I would say that I would definitely encourage you to dream big, because even though it may not come true, if we still dream big and we still try to work towards and persevere through it, then we kind of get stronger along the way towards our own success. And I'll say also kind of think about what exactly do you want to be and what exactly do you want in your life. It does require a lot of questioning and a lot of thought. So definitely write that down on paper, because sometimes along the way we can forget about what exactly we want in our life and how do we define success. And I would say if we have somewhere there to kind of serve as a reminder, then it can help us get back on track. All right. Anyone else got to add anything? Okay. I guess I'll kind of move on to kind of our last question before we open it up to the audience. Feel free to put it in the chat, in the Q&A box, especially questions on how do I find my own leadership style, kind of mini things that you want to ask along the journey of being a leader, journey to find your own success. So a lot of times, we're definitely told to kind of, never give up and also persevere a lot of times. So kind of, is there a right time to give up on something towards working towards your success, or should you never give up on it?
Okay, this is something super, super passionate to me, which is why I'm jumping in so quickly. The time to give up is when it starts negatively impacting your mental health. And I know we had a discussion with Project Snapshot. One of the weeks was talking about mental health, but this is something that I never did. I am diagnosed with 5 different mental health disorders, and they're all chemically based, and people love looking at scans of my brains because my brain just doesn't want to function. And for a long time, I was so determined to do what I had set out to do and to meet whatever crazy lofty goal I had set for myself, or continue with a leadership position, that I didn't care if it was draining me. I didn't care how it was impacting, I couldn't see how it was impacting my relationships with others. I became kind of a zombie where I was I have to do this thing. And I just kept going and going and going. And my grades were suffering because I was so determined to do things that were, even though they were leadership roles, even though they were things that I was passionate about, they were really, really negative for me. And they killed my mental health. So if you start, biting off people's heads all of a sudden, and you're really, really snappy, and you aren't feeling rested even after, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours of sleep. If you're, not finding motivation to get up and do basic things, even things like washing your dishes or taking showers or things like that, you might want to take a step back and look at why, and really evaluate what you're doing and decide, is this worth my health? Is this something that adds value to my health and makes me happy and makes me emotionally fulfilled? Or is this a leech that is making me not who I'm supposed to be? And that was a super hard lesson to learn, and I still really, really struggle with it. But it's something that you have to be able to recognize. So yes, there is a time to give up, and it's an important time.
Sorry.
Alrighty. That's okay. Go on.
I was just going to say, I think I agree with a lot of what you said, Natalie. Definitely, if something that you're doing is taking a toll on your health, yes, it's time to take a break. It's time to stop, and find another way to kind of regain some balance in your life. But I also think that it's okay to give up if you find that it's better if your life takes a different direction. So for example, I applied to medical school this cycle. I did not get into medical school, which of course I was very upset about. But I did get into a graduate program in public health. So right now I'm in a place where I'm thinking, do I just continue with a career in public health, or do I reapply to medical school? And I think some people would see, if you don't reapply to medical school, then that's kind of like giving up. You can try year after year after year. There's people that apply for years before they get into medical school. But I wouldn't call that a failure if I decide that that's not the path that I want to take anymore, and I decide that I want to go a different direction. So I think that once you do some self-reflection, maybe talk to some other people, and you decide that where you're going is not where you should be going and you should go in a different direction, then that's definitely a good time to give up, and I would not consider that a failure at all. In fact, I think that it could actually be considered a success.
Oh yeah, I definitely have to agree with self-reflection for like growth, because it allows us to say like, okay, what exactly are we doing good right now? What exactly can we improve upon? Like, how did things go today? And I would say it's also important with self-reflection is to kind of look at our emotions to see like how much energy we have, and especially like, are we okay to like take on a certain task, or like, do we need to take like a little break? Because I would say a lot of times I failed to realize this until like this year, but I always took other people as a better priority than myself, which is like, in some cases can be great. Like, we can helping others is always great, but I failed to take care of myself at times, which is what I also realized that I also have taken myself as a priority too. And by kind of making sure to take care of yourself, by doing so, then you'd have the more capacity to take care of others, I would say. And since it's around like 5:49, I'm gonna leave the rest to kind of an open Q&A. So do not hesitate to pop in all of the questions into the Q&A box or in the chat, and we'll definitely be able to answer them.
Just until we get a question, just something I wanted to say to the panelists is that I noticed, I think specifically for those that are observing as women, we're all in demanding fields and we demand a lot for ourselves. So self-reflection is so critical to checking in with yourself to make sure that you're not, sacrificing, like Natalie had spoken about, like your mental health and your well-being. So what I found is really crucial to my own success and my own growth is being able to prioritize myself and my time, and find compromise as well. Sometimes I may not be able to do absolutely everything, and that's okay. Sometimes as women, especially, whether that's in a male dominated profession or in a professional role, you might feel like you need to have some sort of upper hand on everyone else, but it's important to just stay true to yourself and respect whatever your learning journey or your growth is, because that's the way that it's supposed to be.
You brought up a really good point, and something it reminded me of. You said, well, we as women. And I think something that's important to remember is leadership looks different based on who you are and where you come from. And this is something I dealt with a lot in my first internship. I ended up leading a team of French engineers that were over in France and a team of engineers over in India. And leadership and what makes a good leader can vary very, very big based on things like culture or gender, or, if you're a minority. So for example, I am a member of the disabled community, and I'm also a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. And leadership can take on different forms and mean different things to different communities. So I think it's important and something that I still kind of struggle with, is remembering that just because you think a leader looks a certain way doesn't mean somebody else who's from a different path of life thinks the same way. And it's kind of important to communicate sometimes and go, okay, hey, like a really big thing for me was learning to be blunt in emails to certain cultures. I'm a very fluff email person. And that made me look like a bad leader to some of the people I was leading. So just kind of communicating differences in what leadership is across various differences is really important.
Yeah, that ties back into what Julianna was saying, that was very important too, about biases and your own privilege. I think what she said there was very crucial to your finding your success and being a good leader.
Definitely.
Great. Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, I would say I have one, just off the top of my head, but kind of in your opinion, what's your leadership style? Because I know that there's different leadership styles out there. So kind of what is yours, and how did you find it, and kind of how can you help others find their own? If you want to start out.
So my leadership style is called the Lyann, where I kind of just barge in and take charge. My big thing with my leadership style was not recognizing it, but learning how to kind of hold back some of my leadership qualities. I have a tendency to be too, I mentioned my goal setting earlier. I have a tendency to be too to the point, to the dot. If we don't meet certain deadlines by a certain date, by doing certain things, I get very upset. So my leadership style, while it was easy for me to recognize, and every personality test and leadership assessment I've ever done has said, I'm the go-getter, executive, in-your-face leader. My challenge has always been holding back. And I think it's important to recognize that your leadership style is going to have a lot of amazing positives, but it's also going to tell you some really harsh truths about yourself. And that it's okay that you do things like I barrel over people. That just happens sometimes. I'm very blunt, in your face. And learning how to kind of take your negatives and make them into positives, or learning how to work with your negatives, is just as important as knowing what your actual leadership style is.
Just to add on to that, it made me think about also how I am, and an interesting leadership exercise that I did at a sort of retreat that I did with my work was an exercise called Dolphin. It's so random, but what you do is, so it was a really big group of us, and then one person was supposed to be the dolphin, and the rest of us were the trainers. And the dolphin had to step outside of the room, and then the trainers had to figure out what sort of exercise or movement or very short sequence they wanted to be their sequence. So we did just basically a yoga thing or something, where you go into palm center. And so the person came in and they've gotten no instructions, zero context. They have no idea why we are where we are, what's going on. But essentially all we have to do in order for them to somehow get to the sequence that we had figured out ourselves was to clap. So as they got closer, so as the person walks closer, we would clap. As they stepped back, we wouldn't clap. As they lifted up their arms, we would start clapping. And then, so that sounds very stressful, and it was, but it taught us all a really important lesson, because I find, as someone that's like very empathetic and just really is a caretaker, I want to take care of others. And I struggle when other people struggle, is that, and when you're that type of person, you want to do things for others when they face any sort of adversity or struggle. So it's really important that you let other people find their own growth and their own success. And so it's a strange way of coming to that conclusion, but it's really, really important. And I think we do actually have like a question in the Q&A. I can answer just the first one. It's just about being an introverted person, and as a leader, I support others, but I feel like sometimes I need to speak up and physically lead the team. So what's your intake on leading a team? I would say that there's definitely a line to tread. And again, I sometimes would struggle with this as a leader, where am I doing too much, or am I like meddling too much? So I think, that's one way of looking at leadership, is that you need to sort of like tell people what to do. But surprisingly, at least in my experience, that isn't necessarily going to lead the other person to their own success. You have to give them the tools, the empowerment, and the encouragement, and they will have to figure it out for themselves. Otherwise, they're not really going to take away anything and know how to do it the next time around.
Love that answer. Such a good answer.
100% relate to that, honestly, not gonna lie. I would say the next question is how you can help other people realize their leadership potential when they themselves don't believe they have it in them. I've seen so many people also struggle with it too. They can be like really great leaders, and then they don't believe in themselves. So it's definitely like a really great question to ask.
Is this the second question?
It's a second question, but it's in the chat instead of the Q&A box.
Oh, okay. I was trying to see it so I could read it. I think this one, and if I know we have like some medical people, and Julianna's had like a professional like course on this, so if you have any like fun actual terms to use for this, please jump in at any point. But I think a big thing for helping other people realize their leadership potential when they don't think they have it is just constant positive feedback. I think as humans, especially, and all species of life, if you want, for example, like this is a horrible example, but like if you're training a dog, the only way they know they're doing good and they know they're doing what they're supposed to be is when you give them treats and you go, who's a good boy? And you're super, super excited, right? You can do the same thing with people that you're helping grow their leadership potential. Somebody earlier mentioned like one-on-ones. This is a great time to go, hey, I noticed you're doing X, Y, Z. This is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, give them treats. And I definitely done that, right? Rewards work so well. That's why companies like Google and Microsoft do big company events and do team events to reward people for doing right things, right? Because we need that kind of positive feedback. So when it comes to leadership, constantly, going, hey, you're doing amazing. I'm recognizing you for the leadership you're currently doing is super, super important, at least for me personally.
So true. Okay.
I think sorry.
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, I think for this one, it's also like using that one-on-one to really sit down with them and understand their perspectives and understand why they feel that they're not a leader or that they can't be a leader. And then perhaps using strategies, including positive reinforcement, to then help them develop goals or develop a way to enhance their leadership abilities is a more strategic way perhaps to go about this.
Awesome. So I guess the last one is, how do I succeed at a big goal? I relate to that so much because I also struggle with making goals too and carrying that out. So I usually work well with deadlines, but for goals that are personal, no deadline, and big, that require planning weeks and months, I often find it hard to schedule and plan out my weeks and months to make sure I achieve my goal. What are your tips to keep the bigger picture in view to succeed?
I have an answer for this one. Well, personally for me, it's very easy to plan and it's very, I guess, easy to stay motivated and keep the big picture in mind. I'd say that if you're a person that has trouble doing that and that's just naturally not in your personality to be a planner and to be very motivated, I would find somebody in your life who is like that. I think a lot of the time it's helpful to have someone to keep you accountable, someone that you can talk to, text, sit down with, and plan out your big idea, plan out your weeks. I'm sure if they're like me, they'd be happy to sit down and plan because I love planning and organizing. But having that person in your life who can hold you accountable, I think that's kind of another motivator because now you have someone that you don't want to let down. You want to work hard to, I guess, not impress the person, but just not let them down, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, are there any questions?
I was just going to say, Julianna took the words from my mouth. Having somebody hold you accountable is great, regardless of what you're trying to do in your life. So this is, this question really hits home for me because I am great for planning with organizations and planning projects that benefit other people. But the minute I try to do something for myself, I have a tendency to really, really struggle. And there's a few things I do. So I do not just have one calendar, I have 3. And they're all integrated together and they all send me different notifications at different times so that I'm constantly seeing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not near me, but I have a sticky note wall. I am probably the world's biggest consumer of sticky notes. And I create a little like sticky note calendar where each sticky note is an action item I have to do. And I make them really bright colors so that when I enter my room, they haunt me if they're sitting on that wall and I haven't done them. Because I'm really, really bad at like keeping my own personal goals. Like this is my biggest problem. Trying to grow myself. I also, we talked about having somebody hold you accountable. I have multiple people that hold me accountable for different things. So I have one of my friends is currently trying to lose weight with me. She checks in every single day at noon because I am horrible about eating my lunch. So, this applies to all different aspects of your life. So yeah, but highly recommend the sticky note wall. And honestly, my last tip, because I know I'm rambling, make it fun. If you make all of your goals and everything you have to do boring and horrible, you are going to procrastinate. You are going to not want to do it. You're going to just be so apathetic to whatever you have to do that you will do anything to not do it. So, going back to rewarding, other people, reward yourself. Say if I, hit this goal, I'm going to go out and I'm going to, get a fancy dinner for myself and I'm going to enjoy it. Reward yourself for it. Make it fun where you set up little, like, if you hit goals, you post about it on social media and you tell people to get positive reinforcement. Don't make it boring. Being a leader and growing as a leader and growing as a human being does not have to be boring and stuffy and, just blah all the time. Make it fun. Life tip, make life fun.
Okay. I would say if anyone doesn't have any more questions, I'm pretty sure that concludes our panel for today. By the way, thank you so much for everyone who came. There's a lot of things that we went through, a lot of key takeaways that we had. So thank you so much. Oh yeah.
Yes, Julianna.
So there's going to be takeovers happening this week and also next week. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it was the last week. But to kind of wrap it off, the rest of the panelists will be doing their takeovers, so they'll be there to answer any of your questions. So feel free to plug in as many questions as you like pertaining to leadership, success, or anything in between, just literally anything. They're open to answering all the questions that you had. And I would say to also kind of wrap up, for Project Snapshot, we'll most likely be trying to organize something with an alumni Slack group. So instead of this one, we'll be moving over to kind of alumni Slack group where everyone from the R&D, the mentorship, programs and the professional development programs. We'll also be kind of just hang out there, and we'll be there to network as well. So yeah, it's going to be like a nice Project Snapchat community. But
Love it.
yeah, awesome. So I would say have a good rest of the week, everyone. And if you do want to like join the mentorship program again, like feel free to always put in the applications. We're definitely welcome to have you on board again.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.